Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 27th Victor Planning Board meeting. If you would please rise and we'll do the pledge of allegiance. I have a number of announcements, if we would, please. Emergency exits are on both sides of the room as well as to the rear. Restroom is out the door and to your left. And if you would, please be sure to sign the attendance sheet at the back of the meeting room, even if you're a developer and are presenting an application. And there's also business cards at the back table next to the sign-in sheet to take with you. It's got the email address and phone number of the planning department. The back table's loaded. There's also a copy of the resolutions that will be read tonight along with the agenda. If you would please turn off your cell phones and please take all conversations out into the hallway. We don't have any meeting minutes to approve, so we have received a number of items of correspondence. We have a letter from David Wright regarding the Hislop driveway waiver. We've also had a letter from Deborah and Peter Illick regarding the Nikoloff subdivision, as well as two letters from the New York State DEC. Alexis, do you have any updates from the town board, please?
So this will be my last meeting as your liaison. The next one will be, or for the next 4 months, will be Drew Cusimano. I will remind everyone, as I presume Drew will as well, that Hometown Day and Climate Board Victor Day is September 14th, right here in the village. We had our town board meeting last night, long meeting, but not, I don't think, anything, I don't say not exciting, but nothing very consequential, I guess, to say. We did have, though, yesterday 2 ribbon cuttings in the town, up near-ish Eastview Mall, somewhat across from it. The old Pier 1 Imports is now a Rochester Regional Health Office, and there is now a Bank on Buffalo office near like the High Point development, kind of back there behind the old North Face. So exciting for businesses here in the town. And just to give you a quick update on some things that I've been working on, kind of before I step off as liaison, the baby changing stations as well as adult changing stations I'll be working on. We're hopefully going to get some designs done for adult changing stations over at Dryer Road as well as Victor Municipal Park to kind of spec those out, see how much this will cost, et cetera, for us. And then also looking to put in baby changing stations. We've had it completed now at Dryer, but also at Bluebird and Town Hall as well in both men's and women's bathrooms. And then as well, the solar moratorium. I know Scott's familiar with, our work with the solar team. We are getting very close to the end. We are going to propose a 6-month extension to the current moratorium. I don't think we'll need all 6 months. We are probably in one of our last 2 or 3 meetings of our solar task force before we finalize everything and start bringing it I'll probably be back as well then, I guess, to present that to all of you, but as well to, our zoning board. I'm liaison to the village, so give them kind of an update, and we'll obviously do a public hearing, et cetera, send it to county planning board. So I think just with everything we need to do for getting the actual code passed, we might be a little bit over the current 6 months. So I'm hoping to have that wrapped up, knock on wood, by the end of the year. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No, Alexis, and thank you so much. We've enjoyed your work as the liaison this past quarter.
Absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first item on our agenda is, what else have I got? Pardon me? Keith. Oh, Keith. How could I forget? I just talked to him. Sorry, Keith.
you're going to forget anybody, it should be me. So your next board meeting is, for the planning board, is Tuesday, September 10th at 7 PM. And the only thing on the agenda right now is a preliminary final application for the Smith subdivision, which is at 421 County Road 9. Applicant is requesting approval to develop a second parcel from the existing parcel at 421 County Road 9. Lot 1 is proposing a lot line adjustment for a total of 1.508 acres, and Lot 2 will consist of an existing home with the driveway access to County Road 9 on 2.068 acres. Lot 3 will consist of 0.920 acres with access onto County Road 9. This is the second step of a major subdivision for them, and that's the only thing, plus any carryovers from tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anything else before I start? Okay, I just wanted to check. Okay, the first item on our agenda is a carryover from the August 13th meeting. It's regarding a waiver for the Hislop driveway located at 1513 Beaumont Way. The property is zoned residential. It's owned by Caitlin and Eric Hislop, tax map 40.2-1-5.00. Applicants requesting a waiver from the Design and Construction Standards Driveway Layout Detail, RS-6, where a 20-foot maximum width is allowed. The applicant is requesting approval for a 29.75-foot width driveway. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Caitlin Hislop.
Thank you. We had a good discussion as we were planning for this meeting regarding the waiver. The most, I think, germane items were, one, there's already two, I believe, driveways in your neighborhood that are at the width that you're requesting. We also had quite a discussion about the town standards and where it made sense to have the 20-foot versus 29.75-foot driveway. So, for instance, on a long driveway, a waiver to have a driveway of this width does not make sense. A taper would be called for because the drivers would have plenty of room to maneuver. Whereas on a short driveway, like you experience in your neighborhood, having a taper would be not make sense. So we did come to the conclusion that we would probably want to revisit the driveway standards so that we had some clarity around when a waiver would be called for or when it would not. And would you want to add to that? Is anything else from the engineering perspective?
I think you did a nice job. Yeah, we met with town staff, the town engineer, Labella, and the planning board chair. We talked about this particular topic. We don't know exactly where this design, this 20-foot width design maximum originated. Part of me thinks that maybe in some communities, like maybe even the Village of Victor, Village of Victor or more urban areas, sometimes you have zoning requirements that speak to not paving more than X percent of your front yard, right? And maybe that's something that is a design that was pulled from that arena. I'm not exactly sure, but I think the decision was that Labella, as town engineer, we would investigate to find a way to adjust the standard so that the planning board's not seeing as many requests for these waivers. So if there's a longer driveway and if it makes sense distance-wise to have a property owner come in for a waiver, we can do that. But I don't feel like, Labella didn't feel like the proposed scenario in this particular project was that offensive, and I think we were okay with it.
Thank you. Al, do you have any comments?
Well, initially I was opposed to the waiver for the very reason of being at precedent setting, right? And I was very sympathetic to the homeowner and it was not theirs. But after listening to discussion with the idea that the town is looking at maybe revisiting the code or the ability to need a waiver, I'm now inclined to accept it as is.
Thank you. Ernie?
I was of the same opinion that Al just expressed. When we left the meeting last time, you were going to get in touch with the builder and have a representative here, but I don't see one.
As it turns out, the builder, I don't believe was responsible for the driveway, that the people that bought the home
Oh, no?
actually did this, so that's why we didn't invite the builder to come.
Okay. Well, I'm on the same page as Al. I originally didn't like this idea of having to do waivers all throughout this project, but I will concede and go along with that.
Thank you. Scott?
Well, I agree with David Wright's comments, where he indicates it's going to set a bad precedent. I agree with that, and I also agree that our code is very clear on it. And it's not my desire to make this homeowner become penalized because of a negative determination on the waiver, but I just think, having worked with a number of home builders over the years, if I'm a home builder and I can show my customers that you can get a really wide driveway in the town of Victor, just like you see on the screen there, I think I'm going to have some homes sold and some happy homeowners, and they'll get exactly what they want. And I personally believe that's what's happened here, and I think the homeowner is probably just a victim of that. That's my speculation, that's my opinion. But I agree with what David says. I agree 100% with what he says. So I'm not in favor of it.
I'm of two minds as well. I'm in an established neighborhood. We've been in our home for 27 years, and as I've been thinking about this, there's quite a number of driveways, and we have longer driveways that are 3 cars wide. So apparently this is an issue that's been going on and addressed for a while, and that's why I support the updating, if you will, of the town standards. Having said that, I support the Hislop driveway waiver. Again, sort of an innocent bystander, if you will, and the expense of correcting this, if you will. I'm not sure if it's a fair burden to put on them, given that, to one hand, Mr. Wright makes the point that it's the homeowner's responsibility to be aware of the codes and all. On the flip side, looking through the neighborhood and seeing 2 properties that are already like this, I think it's probably a reasonable assumption that it's okay.
Yeah, I agree that the homeowner's, an innocent bystander somewhat to this situation, and I think probably took the comments from whomever and proceeded accordingly. But if I take a look at that photograph there, that driveway is consuming half of the front yard. I mean, you don't have.
That's a tough angle, if I may interject. It's not the full width of our entire
but
property.
it's-
The mound of dirt was before we were graded.
Right. But I agree with David's comments completely. I just think,
Well, the width is limited at where it joins the right-of-way. Wouldn't involve tearing up the whole driveway.
Right.
Just the front portion of it by,
right, you'd
8
have to
feet,
trim
5, 6
trim
feet.
from the gutter to the right of way.
yeah.
Right, and Scott, I would just add, I also agreed completely with David's points. And had the town not indicated they were looking to, change that requirement, I would have said no. But
Yep.
given that, I have a hard time saying tear this up,
Yeah.
put it in with grass, and then, 3 months later, we come back and we have a code with a wider requirement that seemed like that was all for naught. So,
Yeah. Well,
And that's what-
I guess we have diverging opinions on this.
And that's kind of where I am too, is that we don't want a precedent established, and it appears that there's enough of this occurring that there already kind of is a precedent regarding, so it sort of calls for an update to the standards.
So does that mean that we have to give waivers to these other people who are in the neighborhood that haven't come before us yet?
I'd have to look and see if they actually applied for them or not, frankly.
I would think we would have to.
oh yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we would have to be consistent in our view on this topic.
Otherwise, we are setting a precedent if we don't require it. I see it. If we don't
Okay.
require that they apply for a waiver, then I think it's a de facto standard. Go ahead, if I'm, whatever builder is doing that.
Wes, can you keep us advised of what the town board is going to do about this?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Wes?
Oh,
Yeah, I can follow up with the folks at Labella that would be designing the updated standard and provide you guys, this board, with an update as to what it looks like and where the town board goes with it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So maybe just for some added discussion, if it's not clear about the potential update, Joe and Keith, remind me if I've misjudged, I think, what the conversation was, but I think if the driveway was a certain length, the limit of 20 feet would be the requirement, right? So, but for a shorter driveway, for a house that isn't set back as far from the road, such as what we see on the screen, I'm not sure what the setback might be, 40, 50 feet. Maybe they wouldn't have to come to the planning board for a waiver. Either that's handled administratively, or there's a different maximum if you have a 3-car garage, as we see here, with a shorter driveway. Maybe the maximum is 30 feet, maybe it's 25 feet, maybe it's 28 feet. So, does that sound about what our conversation was? Okay.
So I'm not sure where to go. We have
Am I
a
allowed
draft
to
resolution
speak?
prepared.
You know, go ahead and vote on it. I know how I'm going to vote.
Okay.
Was
I think
the
the
applicant
applicant wants
wanted to
to.
make a comment?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to say I appreciate all the conversation, and I do encourage you to see me not as the builder, but I am your neighbor. I do live here. This is where we are set. We've set our very permanent roots. You don't walk away from a home like that you've built your life to grow. My children, plan to be in Victor schools till they graduate. We have a first grader and a pre-K starting this year. So not to throw too much emotion into it, but, I'm here as the homeowner, the Victor resident, not the builder, just to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we do have a resolution prepared for Heslop driveway waiver. Today's date, August 27th, 2024. Application number 01-PM-2024. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. Number one, our request was received on July 19th, 2024 from Eric Heslop, property owner of 1513 Beaumont Way, for a waiver to the Town of Victor Design and Construction Standards driveway layout detail RS-6 to allow for a driveway width of 29 3/4 feet at the right-of-way. Second, the driveway layout detail RS-6 of the Town of Victor Design and Construction Standards permits a maximum driveway width of 20 feet at the right-of-way. Section 211-48 of the Town of Victor Code authorizes the planning board to waive requirements of the design and construction standards. Now therefore it be resolved that the planning board conditionally approves the requested waiver to the portion of the town's design and construction standards driveway layout detail RS-6 that would otherwise limit a maximum driveway width of 20 feet at the right-of-way to allow for a driveway width of 29 3/4 feet at the right-of-way for the subject property. Condition that a new instrument survey from a New York State licensed surveyor or New York State licensed professional engineer be provided that depicts the width of the driveway so as to confirm the driveway does not exceed the waiver provided herein and that the driveway otherwise complies with the design and construction standards. So, all in favor?
A motion? I'll move.
Oh, motion, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Motion.
I'll move.
A second?
Second?
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, 3-1, it's approved.
Thank you very much.
And then as a follow-up, Wes, could we anticipate a draft modification to the standards to get to the town board so that we move this forward?
Yeah, I think
Is
that,
it reasonable to ask?
Yeah, I think our next action after our meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, is we were going to talk about it at our engineering meeting with the town supervisor and highway superintendent, and then talk over some more of the options on, because a couple, I think property width and driveway length were the two scenarios we were talking about using in the future for these widths. Because to her point, that's a really bad angle. Like if you look at that house straight up, it doesn't look as bad as that angle. But anyways, we were going to make some recommendations and go from there, and then work with the town board, and then we'd circle back with you guys,
Super.
right? Is that-
Yep, that sounds accurate.
I
Yep.
appreciate that, because I think whether you voted for or against this resolution, I think the concerns about this issue are legitimate, and we should be moving this forward.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. All right, the second item on our agenda is a sketch application. A reminder, this is not a public hearing. This is for the Nikoloff subdivision, 05-SK 2024, for property located on County Road number 9 and Blasey Road. The owner is Keith Nikoloff. This is tax map number 7.00-1-12.00. Applicant is requesting acknowledgement of a complete application to develop 42.4 acres into 8 lots with driveways coming off of Blasey Road. This is the first step of a major subdivision, and only acknowledgement of a completed application will be considered at this meeting. Good evening.
Good evening. Planning board members, town officials, and citizens of Victor. My name is John Hotto of Land Tech Surveying and Engineering at 1105 Ridgeway Avenue, Rochester, representing Mr. Keith Nikoloff, the owner of the property, and Mr. Mauro Polidori, builder and developer. The team is moving forward with the design of a 42.4 acre parcel on the west side of Blasey Road, bounded on the west by Victor Road, and on the north by the town line between Victor and Parrington. The property is in the R2 zoning district, which does allow single-family residential homes, as we are proposing. Some of the characteristics of the site, we've got about 8.8 acres of wetlands that we did have delineated last August in 2023. There's a large portion of wetlands towards the west side of the site near Victor Egypt Road. It's about 7.6 acres, and it's been designated, excuse me, both a DEC and a federal wetland. There's also another small wetland of 0.8 acres at the southeast corner of the site in juxtaposition with White Brook, which is a stream that runs to the northeast there through the property and across the road. There's also a 0.4 acre wetland at the northeast corner of the site, which is designated more of a state wetland and not a federal. There's also a tributary of White Brook that runs through the middle of the site in a west-east direction, does go under Blasey Road, and again joins White Brook indirectly over a course of terrain. And it is associated with some pretty interesting drainage patterns in that area. The overall terrain of the site from west to east is quite flat. From Victor Egypt Road, it's about 1.5% to the proposed lot, number 8, which it
Excuse me,
changes
do you have
1%.
the laser pointer there? Could you point and...
I don't, how does
Thank
it
you.
work?
Is it... Here, I've got one.
I think I got it. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so this is Victor Egypt Road here, and this is the larger wetland.
And if you would back to the mic, thank you, yeah.
Able to get your words, sorry.
There we go,
Okay,
thanks.
so, yeah, this is the larger wetlands on the site, predominantly at the west end of the property. So that's about 7.6 acres. And the slopes are from Victor Egypt Road to Lot 8, which is about here, is 1.5%. So there's quite a bit of water hanging out in this area, and that's what created that wetlands. But from here down, it's 1%, so it's very flat. And although there is water going through the site, it does receive water. It's not like torrential runoff from the property. It's very flat. It's going to be challenging, but we'll meet those goals and provide positive drainage and quality and quantity control as well. The site also does have about 11 acres of woods that are associated with this wetlands, but there's also a stretch of woods on this drainage way here that's a tributary to White Brook. So again, there's woods and wetlands here and woods along here, little wetlands down here and a little corner of wetlands there. We have no intention of impacting any of these wetlands or the woods associated with this tributary. We did receive the letter from the DEC, and they kind of highlighted, you should be aware of the permits you'll be required to do anything here. And we're like, we don't really need any permits because we're not going to mess with the wetlands or anything in any regard. Literally, the wetlands themselves or any kind of buffer or anything like that. So, but we will go over that soon. The soils are pretty basically a sandy loam. We did some perk tests out there. We had pretty good results for on-site wastewater management. One lot 6, which is right about there, we had failure because there's a swale along this boundary here, so there's a lot of water that collects there and does contribute it and created this wetland at the corner. So lot 6 is right there, and we're probably going to use a raised bed system there because the perks really didn't work out. But all the other lots, we had pretty good percolation rates for on-site wastewater treatment. Currently, there's an 8-inch water main on Blasey Road that ends about right there. So we're going to extend it, well, it's on the east side of the road, so we're going to go west across the road or under it, and then north to the site. We'll have a main coming into these 4 lots, and we'll also have a main coming into these 4 lots for fire protection, and of course, regular water service. Blasey Road does have gas and electric, I believe, to serve the properties. An issue came up about the 100-year floodplain situation. I have a map, but, so this 100-year floodplain is associated with White Brook right here, and it's basically along our southerly boundary, elevation like 517 or so, but it does go to the north here along White Brook, but it does spread out a little bit in this general vicinity. And the elevation for the 100-year flood down in this vicinity is about 507. So it is very interesting drainage-wise in this vicinity, in this area. So there's culverts too that go under the road. There's one under our little driveway here. In this wetland here, it's very strange. There's a drainage ditch that comes out of this wetlands and kind of meanders along our side of the road, and then it kind of gets hung up. But there's another pipe under a driveway over here, and there's like a pond right next to the road that has fish in it. And the drainage is very obscure. It's hard to understand it, but it does drain to White Brook. But it's so flat, everything just kind of hangs there, which inadvertently created these wetlands in the past and is still creating wetlands. In terms of the lots, we have 8 lots. We're proposing 8 lots. Lot 1 is about 3.51 acres. Lot 2 is 3.85, 3 is 6, 4 is 3, 5 is 3, 6 is 2.6 acres, and 7 is 3 acres. But number 8 is going to be retained by Mr. Nikoloff, and that's about 16 acres. So he's got this lot back here, which has frontage on Victor Egypt Road, but we're also providing some frontage from Blasey Road to his property as well, as required through subdivision design. So Mr. Nikoloff is hanging on to this portion back here, which is a huge chunk of land and will have minimal disruption. In fact, you can see that 100-foot buffer line right there. And the house we're proposing is over here, so we're not even going to be getting near that buffer as well. And the same for the rest of the lots. I mentioned before, according to town code and regulations, we will have on-site stormwater management design features such as bioretention basins, vegetated swales, possibly shallow wet ponds or wetland design. We're just starting to explore that, but it'll all be in compliance with New York State DEC stormwater management design guidelines. And we understand that we did review the neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Elick's letter, which I believe they live right here. And we read their letter. We are concerned about the drainage. We understand the drainage situation. A lot of people are having drainage problems right now, including myself. And we understand the complications, and we'll work with them to alleviate it as best we can with the town as well. Because a lot of the problem is the Blasey Road, because I think there's a swale here, and there's White Brook here, and there's other little intermittent swales down here as well. But a long time ago, this used to sheet drain right across here. I'm sure this was just a simple cow path or farm path. Well, this road's been built up, so it's acting as a dam, and it's backing that road, all the water up there. But I think we can improve it if we just take a closer look at it and make sense out of some of those pipes. There's a big 36-inch that crosses out here in the middle of nowhere, but it doesn't seem to be handling much water. So we just got to pull that together and get a better understanding of it to make improvements for everybody. We did review the New York State review letter from Danielle Myers. We have no problem with any of those points that they brought up. We concur with everything that they wrote in the letter. We had, like I said before, we have no intention of applying for any wetland disturbance permits or stream disturbance or anything like that. In fact, the town has a buffer of 150 feet over this stream corridor that we're totally in compliance with. We're gonna preserve that in conjunction with Mr. Nikoloff's flag extension there for his lot. So this whole area is not even gonna be touched. It won't be disturbed at all. We have no reason to disturb any of these wetlands. So again, we've concur with everything with the DEC. They also mention, that we need a SWIP, which we will definitely do, and we'll submit an NOI in the future. They mention that the property is an ag district, so we'll follow through with that and make sure we're compliant with whatever is forthcoming on that. And again, they brought up the floodplain thing, so again, we won't be building in any floodplain areas, so we're not going to be really impacting that, but we'll be aware of it. They mentioned that there was no historical or cultural resources on the site. They mentioned something about a sanitary sewer extension. We'd have to work with the DEC if we went that route, but we're not going to be going that route. We're going to be doing on-site wastewater. And we just received today from Catherine Powers of Labella a review letter. It had like 9 points, and we concur with all of them, and we'll work together with you guys to comply with those design requirements, which were primarily, most important or key ones were the driveways for these two lots. They're too close together. Apparently, based on Town of Victor code, they have to be 240 feet apart, which they're not per this plan. But we're doing a shared driveway for these 4 lots, and we'll probably just do that here too, if we can do the waiver with the town. So that's our game plan.
So I appreciate the work you've done looking at the water issue, because that's a concern of the neighbors, as well as the DEC. While they have not mandated any action, they've spelled out the risks and
Exactly.
made some recommendations. So
Right.
I appreciate the time that you've taken to brief us on your plans. What I'd like to do is start with Ernie to see if you've got any questions.
Keith, do you have any comments on this? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I guess I just did.
From a stormwater standpoint?
Yes.
No, so typically the way the SWIP coverage works, as Scott, I'm sure would attest to, is, per DEC requirements, the developer is required to attenuate for their stormwater. So theoretically, the water leaving the site should be the same or less than was before. And their engineers will prepare that data, and our engineer would review that data. It's really the only, it's similar to the development across the street. The floodplains are going to change at some point, for some people for the good, for some people for the bad, but no one has a crystal ball to know when FEMA's actually going to do that. So a lot of things, including the subdivision you guys just recently approved across the street, those floodplains are going to change when FEMA changes that data.
Right.
So it's,
One of the comments while you're here, Keith, is
Yep.
that the DEC did say that the town has the authority to require an analysis from developers to look at the potential increased flood risk in order to aid making an informed decision. Where are we with that?
I
Any
would
thoughts?
defer to Labella on that. Per our code, I can tell you that the houses can't be built within the floodplain anyways. I think from what you're saying there and what the plan is saying, they're not going to be built in the floodplain. The house at Howling Hills is also not going to be built in the floodplain. I think the concern there was the existing driveway culverts being modified, and as you guys probably remember, Bella did a lot of analyzation on that and to do with the culverts, and I think they added a couple extra culverts. So no, I mean, a lot of this is engineering stuff that the applicant's engineer works on, and then our town engineer reviews thoroughly. So
Thank you.
I defer and trust our town engineer on stuff like that.
Very good. Anything else, Ernie?
No, that's all I had.
Scott?
I don't think, I guess the question I have is this a major subdivision, Wes?
That is correct.
So we'll be doing the whole long form EAF and all that?
So just major subdivision doesn't necessarily require the long form. However, this one may. I think we need to verify whether or not this meets the New York State Department of Health definition of a realty subdivision, which then, if it is, my understanding is DOH requires that it be reviewed as a type 1 action for a long, so we would need a long form. Yes. And we can, even if it's not a type 1 action, the planning board can still require the applicant to fill out a long form. And in this case, that may be helpful, right, for you as a decision-making body to get the information that you need.
And tonight, we're just looking at this for acceptance to
Sketch plan.
move on to the next step, right?
Correct.
That's all I have.
How about you, Al?
Nothing else to add.
Then it's all up to you, Wes.
All right, thank you. John, thank you for the conversation here today. That was really helpful to listen to you articulate a little bit about what's going on with the project. Really appreciate that. I guess, just as a point of conversation, I'm curious, and maybe Keith, you've heard too, about the common driveways, shared common driveways. I've seen a lot of those come in recently, or recent years, I should say, in the town of Victor. And have you experienced any problems with, or is there any reason why the town wouldn't want to consider continuing to allow for these common driveways, in addition to not only just allow for the common driveway, but also the waiver to three or more lots? John, I don't know if you had a whole lot of experience with the shared driveway issue here.
I like them.
Yeah.
I think they're less disruptive. There's less hardscaping and
Yeah.
infrastructure. I think the most important thing is making sure you have adequate fire hydrants. There's not going to be a lot of traffic. I mean,
Yep.
I just think it's more rural in character, too. to
Does
have
that
simple-
necessitate agreements then between the homeowners in terms of maintenance of the driveway?
Those issues need to be worked out a little bit with the town
Yeah,
requirements.
my understanding is there is a common maintenance agreement, probably a shared access easement, that sort of thing between the properties. So I guess that also leads me to a comment about lot frontage on the road. Looks like some of the lots may not have the frontage that would be required. So I'm guessing that it's your intent to submit the preliminary subdivision as a clustered subdivision, which allows the planning board to fluctuate the dimensional requirements for
Well,
certain.
you're right. We are showing, these 4 lots here to the north are all flag lots,
Yeah,
and these 2 back here as well.
yep,
So 6 of the 8 will be flag.
okay.
And these 2 are pure frontage in front with a common driveway, like you mentioned,
Yep.
based on the driveway separation that was just mentioned earlier in your letter. But,
Yeah, and I don't know that the planning board or even Labella, we're not opposed to the clustered subdivision. That's fine. One of the things I might bring to the board's attention is, do you feel that this is a cluster? Do you feel like enough of the home sites are being clustered on a portion of a parcel where there's enough preservation of open space that you would want to see? I don't know. I'm not sure if you follow my train of thought there. But these lots are a little bit larger, right? They're we got one or two that are over 5 acres,
Yeah,
and then you've
yeah.
got the remainder under 5 acres.
Right.
But there's still 2.5 acres, 3 acres. do you want to cluster them to see them smaller? That may defeat the purpose of a developer looking to sell larger lots, but that's just something maybe for conversation.
One of the issues I would be looking for would be what the conservation easements would look like. I would like to see conservation easements such that contiguous properties, that we have larger areas of natural space, if you will. We also look for access for the hiking trail association, whether it be current or future use. And certainly clustering more deeply than is portrayed would lend itself to that philosophy, if you will.
Yeah. So we did issue a letter just today. We did talk about the wetland delineation. So when the applicant submits their preliminary subdivision application, we'd like to see a copy of the wetland delineation. And there are some wetland delineation notes here on the sketch plan, so that was helpful. And we'll do a thorough septic review of the project with the preliminary subdivision plans, and we'll take a look at site distances. And it's just about, we don't have a problem with the way anything's laid out currently. We'll take a look at the access management standards, and that's that. That's all I've got for you.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments or observations based on what? Okay. I have a resolution. Do I have a motion?
You want to read it?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Been a long day already. So we've got a resolution for the Nickoloff subdivision sketch dated today's date, August 27th, County Road 9 and Blasey Road, application number 05-SK-2024. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. First, a sketch plan application consisting of, but not limited to, a letter of intent, sketch plan application forms, sketch plan drawing set, tax map exhibit, and aerial photograph were received on July 24th, 24 from Keith Nickoloff, the applicant, by the Secretary of the Planning Board for a major subdivision entitled Nickoloff Subdivision, the project, for the property located on Blasey Road, Victor, New York. Second, the project proposes development of the 42.4-acre parcel into 8 single-family lots. Third, another review sign was posted on the parcel as required by town code. Fourth, the Conservation Board reviewed the sketch plan on August 20th, 24, and stated that they find no concern given the data available at this time. The Codes Department reviewed the sketch plan on August 19th, 2024, and reserved comments. Number 6, Lobella Associates reviewed the sketch plan on August 27th, 2024, and provided comments. And number 7, the Department of Environmental Conservation reviewed the sketch plan on August 20th, 24, and provided comments. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that regarding the sketch plan application of Keith Nickoloff, the major subdivision entitled Nickoloff Subdivision, drawn by Land Tech, dated July 23rd, 2024, received by the Planning Board July 24th, 2024, Planning Board application number 05-SK-2024. The Planning Board acknowledges receipt of a complete sketch plat application, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary forward a copy of this resolution to the applicant. May I have a motion?
I'll move.
Al moves.
I'll second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
The third item on our agenda is a public hearing for the Flower City Dispensary, application 20-SP 2024, property located 8053 State Route 96. The owner is Newcomb Properties LLC. We're tax map number 6.00-1-7.120. Applicant is requesting approval to open a legal cannabis retail store in the Cannabis Overlay District. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us here.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm Brittany Tantello. I am president and co-founder of Flower City Dispensary, a recent conditional adult use retail dispensary recipient.
My name is Jason Tantello. I'm also the Chief Operating Officer of Flower City Dispensary.
So obviously, we're here seeking approval to open a legal cannabis retail store in a cannabis overlay district. We plan to operate 7 days a week, with hours being from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Hoping to be able to expand that maybe during peak time, seasonal, like Christmas, New Year's, to potentially 12 a.m. We will also be providing delivery of cannabis in an unmarked vehicle to people who live in the Victor community and other surrounding areas. We have a solid plan for crowd control. You want to speak to that? I don't
Yeah.
want to
No,
not give you the opportunity, I'm
it's
sorry.
okay. You know,
If you would into the mic, please. Yeah,
for
thanks.
grand opening, we're going to be hiring out a company that's going to make sure that the parking lot is not being overcapacitated with cars, no stopping in the traffic on 96. You know, we generally don't really have too much concern with, you know, the parking situation or anything else like that after the grand opening. It's not like 50, 60, 70 people are going to come in at a time every day. So I don't think the crowd control will go any further besides the grand opening. With the security aspect, as you guys seen, you know, we have the state-of-the-art equipment that's being installed. It goes right to our phone. This is from a company called Seabolt Security. They're in control of, you know, the museum in New York City for what they call the Met. You know, so they secure invaluable items, and they're going to be, priceless items. And when it comes to the sign, I did sub out the work to ID Sign Systems, and I sent over the specs that they're going to, you know, implement, and it's going to be facing, it's going to be on the south side of 96 facing north. We're not going to have a sign in the parking lot. It would be a waste of resources. However, our window coverings, the state requires window coverings, so you can't see in. So that there will be some logo implementation on there. If the town, you know, agrees that that can happen. I know in some cases, like in Fairport where our hydro shop is, it's like 30 or 40% of the window coverings you can't have, you know, more than that. And then I think in regards to the hours of operations, I do acknowledge, we do acknowledge the fact that within the town itself has some standards that were set previously in 2023. We are going to apply for an area variance, just, you know, follow the procedures and make sure that we're setting the standards that Victor needs in compliance.
Very good. So just as an FYI, the approval tonight then would be for the specified hours of operation, which would
yes.
mean the
Yep.
closing at 9 p.m.
Yep.
And then regarding the logo implementation on the window coverings, we may need to talk to the town about how that fits in. Do you have a comment now, or is that something you would have to research, Keith? No. How about you?
Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile for the code enforcement office to look at whatever window signage that might be proposed, or what you might have on the parking lot side. If you've got something stuck to your window, that may constitute a sign.
Yeah.
Not saying it can't be done, but it's something that the town will need to take a look at.
And I think you referenced window coverings on the Route 96 side as a state requirement, so
Right.
logos on that might be an issue as well.
I know that they submitted a sign permit. Did you include that information with the sign permit?
No, because I didn't have that information at the time. But once we give the deposit, they're going to file the application for the permit and everything on their end for the sign company.
Question on the sign. What I hear you saying is that there's going to be one exterior sign.
Yep.
Is that going to be attached to the building?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
just like the current existing signs that are on the building. So what you're seeing in the middle, that's the property. It's the Suite B, pink silhouette is actually where Flower City Dispensary is going to be. And based off of, just off the findings, it's going to be 268 square feet of signage if permitted. I didn't look into the regulations that for the square footage that's permitted. However, based off of 12 and a half times 22.5, I believe that was 268 square feet. So that's going to be what you can see from the road. And that's going to also be on, what is it? Where's my glasses? That's going to be on like mounted on a flush stud. I believe it was the depth of each letter is going to be 3 inches. So whatever you guys need us to be compliant, no problem.
Okay.
Just please, as Lisa, I think was insinuating, just make sure that update your sign permit to reflect everything you're thinking about doing, and then code enforcement will tell you what's allowed and what's not without a variance,
Okay.
including anything you're going to put on those window coverings.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Al, have you got any questions?
Well, I guess my basic question, I was asking Wes before we started the meeting, but what exactly is the purpose of having this come before the planning board? I mean, what are we approving or disapproving? It's not clear to me.
Go ahead, Wes, because you could probably answer it better than I.
Yeah, so right now, today, the way the code is written, we are reviewing a site plan application due to a change of use of the property. So we're not reviewing like a special use permit. We're not reviewing the use of the property or the use of the store. We're taking a look at the site plan application. We don't really have a site plan drawing that indicates, what we might see on a typical site plan. For example, proposed parking, ingress and egress point, driveway, dumpster pads, any fencing, that sort of thing, because my understanding is that nothing on site is actually changing, except maybe the interior of the building and maybe the sign. One of the things that might be helpful for the planning board with regard to this site plan application is if, let me know if we can't do this as a planning board, but to actually review the proposed sign that's going to go on the building. We do have architectural standards in the Route 96 251 overlay corridor. For some, you might feel it may be a good idea to review the quality of the sign, the materials, the colors, the illumination, that sort of thing. That may be really helpful as part of this application.
Okay, thank you, Wes. So I guess my only concern, again, given that we're not looking at a site plan per se, is the parking. I mean, given part of the opening statement of the applicant that says, we might have traffic control, and I'm just concerned, right, is this site appropriate from a parking perspective not to create parking issues or hazards in that already busy corridor?
I don't have reference to the code right at the moment, and I would be curious. I could have looked. I could look maybe after the meeting. I would assume that the parking lot that is there today probably meets the parking standards for the size of retail building that's there. Mm-hmm. However, I don't know if that it's probably that parking scenario didn't anticipate this particular type of use.
And given this is the
And-
first and
yeah.
only dispensary in,
Yep.
I think, Victor right now, I'm anticipating it could be a well-traveled location.
I can tell you there's plenty of parking. From what we currently see, my wife and I run a statewide organization, not-for-profit. We have over 300 licensed operators across the state, and parking is super efficient there. I mean, we're talking over 40 spots. I don't see any issues. The only issue that I seen was in the very beginning with the grand opening, potentially. It's a very big space, and the dentist office is closed on Fridays all the way through the weekend, and there's nobody currently leasing out the Metro Mattress right now.
You have plans, just another question popped in my head. For your grand opening, do you anticipate signage for that?
Yes, we're hoping to have our sign installed, but we're, I mean, my
I
wife.
guess, I guess what I mean is, do you plan to have additional signs, like notifying the public grand opening, like banners or flags or anything like that?
I mean, we haven't thought that, that deeply into that part yet. But if that would be an issue, I mean, we could refrain from adding any extra attention. I know the day of the grand opening, we're going to have a lot of assistance with controlling that parking lot. We actually are considering doing a soft opening so that maybe it's not so grand, and then plan a time that can be more scheduled and managed
Yeah.
for a grand opening.
So I like the point of a condition of approval being a review by perhaps the planning department of the signage before it goes up, to make sure that, you know, in all aspects it complies with what we're looking for here. Is that something that?
I guess what I'm suggesting is that it not be reviewed by the planning department, but actually the planning board, this board itself. And whether, you know, whether or not that stalls this application in terms of not providing an approval tonight, or if you want to, maybe there's an opportunity to provide your conditional approval tonight, and one of the conditions is that they come back to the board for sign approval.
I mean, just to be transparent, like, we want nothing but, you know, your approval. However, it costs us $7,000 a month in that space, and we are in a tight budget. The supporting, you know, people that are supporting us now, the contractors, the sign permit, like the sign developers, all of that, they're doing everything in their power to meet the expectations that we have for grand opening on the 26th of September. OCM moves at a snail's pace. Our examiner is waiting for our COO in order to issue us our license to even proceed. We can't build our vault, we can't do anything without this COO. You know, we can guarantee.
Whatever you guys would need or want to see to feel comfortable, however we could get that to you,
Yeah.
not to stall this process, we will do.
Is your sign already, have you already contracted? Is your sign under construction now?
We
Is
were
your-
waiting for funding. Tomorrow, we close on our funding.
Yeah.
In order to even give them the 50% deposit.
To get the sign.
To get the sign.
The reason I ask is that if this planning board is going to provide input on the design, the color, the
Yeah.
illumination, and you've already invested X number of dollars into
We haven't
getting your
gone that
sign
far.
manufactured, right?
No, we haven't gone that far.
Which is typical of most site plans, right, where we do sign review.
I mean, I will tell you, we just plan to have it be white LED. So, we're not planning to do any crazy, like, just white. We can give you more detail, so it meets and where you guys feel comfortable, but nothing has been paid or set in stone. So yes, that's open.
And I did submit images to the code's email about exactly what it's going to look like for me, like when I see it. And it's like, it's really, I mean, it's box letters, the font is sans serif. It's very clean. It's got black outline, you know, black boxing.
Not
and-
attractive to children or anything, very, very just clean but seen. That was really our intent.
Yeah.
They do have a sign permit in, and I think you're restricted, I think from what it said, it was just Flower City Dispensary. There was no logo or anything like that. I think you were
Cannabis
restricted, but
leaf.
Yeah.
they have a sign permit into us. It's just waiting for planning board approval for this. I think they were gonna move forward on the sign.
So to be clear, it's just typeface. There's no Flower City logo or anything.
No.
And it's what, black on white, pretty much?
Just the white, yeah.
With the LED, you know, transparent LED or white background, whatever, however it illuminates, makes it bright. That's
Yeah.
it. No bulbs, no, we can't even have the logo in it by regulation.
Right.
So the OCM won't allow that.
Right. We're not allowed to do
Thoughts,
that.
Ernie?
Yes.
Let her rip.
You're familiar with the Rise Dispensary in Henrietta?
Yes, medical.
How does this compare to that?
They are a medical dispensary, so they have the power to prescribe for a physical ailment, where we're recreational. I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't, if you had back pain, I couldn't prescribe something to you, but I can recommend or give you accessibility if you had knowledge.
Well,
I think,
if
Ernest-
somebody had a prescription from a doctor, could you fill it?
Could we fill it?
Yeah.
We're working on that, actually, with regulation, because medical can actually sell recreational products. But we can't sell medical or prescribe it. So we're working to see if we could actually have an in-house practitioner where we could. We'll see what the future holds, but in the moment, no.
Yeah,
Do you want to see what the prescription looks like?
do.
Sure.
Yes, I do.
I bet, yes.
I can tell you some of the product in Rise runs parallel with the recreational across
Yes.
the state. They have the ability to co-locate, meaning they can sell medical patients cannabis at a medical grade, or recreational cannabis to walk-in.
Right.
And then they also have the ability to sell their medical cannabis to us as private labeling through other subdivision brands. So we will have quality of medical.
Yes.
But
Yes. Let's take a look.
Just one sheet. I don't think it's specified Rise.
No, yeah, you can purchase legally cannabis from our recreational dispensaries without a medical card. It is legal to do that, but you would have to have a medical card to go to a medical dispensary. So you can come in, and a lot of the products, like he had mentioned, you'll find where we are. I just can't write your script, because I'm not a doctor.
And is the size going to be comparable to Rise?
Yes. Our
Yeah,
hope.
Because it looks like it is.
it's a
Yes.
2,200 square foot facility with roughly 1,350, 1,400 feet of floor space,
Yes.
actual retail floor space. The aesthetics is going to be much, like if we sent you over the draft to see like
Our
what it's gonna- Our
renderings.
rendering, like it's top of the line. I mean, we're putting
It was,
in.
it was very important to us to bring that sophistication and professionalism to Victor, which I believe they exude if we're going to bring legal cannabis to this industry. We also have children in this community. Jason and I know a lot more of the science and the education behind it, and I think that that's more of what we hope to deliver when you come and shop at a Flower City dispensary. And I think a lot of people get that from medical. You want to know what you're consuming. Everything in our dispensary is lab tested. Will come in child-proof packaging and is completely state regulated. As Jason had mentioned, even with our security, we will spare no expense, at least with that, in terms of keeping the community safe as well as ourselves. I want to be able to go home every night and have people feel comfortable in this community. One of the issues is the frosted glass. We're actually, as an organization, it's open for public comment, combating that. Because if hypothetically we were being robbed, nobody would see that that was occurring. It's actually very scary. But it is currently in regulation, and we have to change that. But we want this to be done right. I think it's at that time, and we're excited to be here in Victor, and you guys have been very wonderful.
Very good. Scott, do you have any?
I have a couple of comments. One comment is, being involved with the town over the years on the zoning board prior to the planning board here, I mean, this property's come in many times for variances. And what I noticed over those applications is that the owners have had a hard time filling the vacancy in this building for quite some time. And this is one of the few buildings that I can recall that complied with our corridor regulations and put the parking in the back, which we had asked for as part of our corridor study some years ago. That being said, I also noticed that it's owned by Newcomb, according to the application, and Newcomb, to my knowledge, owns the gas station and perhaps the parcel next door, and if there is some sort of grand opening and overflow of traffic or whatever, perhaps the owner, Newcomb, could, based on this aerial photograph, provide some additional parking space for some people and take care of that issue. The only other question or comment I had was, You're going into the pink silhouette portion, so is it reasonable to think that your sign would be approximately the same size
Yeah,
as their sign?
yeah.
But you want it on the
Yeah,
96,
it's
not
gonna be north
inside.
side of the building, not south side of the building.
Okay. And I can tell you that once upon a time, I can't remember who it was, came in before the zoning board for a sign, I think, a couple of locations, and I think there is a zoning variance out there that enables that to happen on both sides.
Okay.
Not sure if it's part of your portion of the building or not, but I do recall once upon a time, we had an attorney appear before the zoning board and was giving us a long story about how they needed more visibility and they needed another sign, and they were granted a variance for that. But it has been a difficult building to fill. I often see, as I'm sure other members do, that, for lease, quite often you see that when you're driving by. So I think this is a good fit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we do too.
We're so excited.
We love the location.
Those are my
Yes.
comments.
Thank you.
thank you.
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. And this is a public hearing, so does anybody from the public have any comments or observations, questions? Very good, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I do have a resolution. I do have a question before I go through that, relative to the discussion about the signs. I am comfortable with your description of what the sign is going to be, both from a aesthetic and I guess a regulatory perspective as well. And I guess my question for the board is, do you all think we need any specific language or conditions before we move forward with the resolution?
Well, we have ordinances on the board, on already, that we passed last year. So I think if they're within those, they're okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments, input?
Nope.
I then,
A shorter drive for me.
there you go.
Can't wait to see you guys.
You'll get a discount.
Lower carbon footprint.
So we got a resolution for the Flower City Dispensary dated August 27th, 2024, property located 8053 State Route 96, application number 20 SP-2024. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. I guess I got to read all of these, right? No? All right. And there are 8 findings of fact. Now therefore it be resolved that the application of Flower City Dispensary, site plan entitled Flower City Dispensary Site Plan, received by the Planning Board July 23rd, 2024. Planning Board application number 20 SP 2024 be approved with the following conditions. The conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. First, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25th, 1996. Second, that comments from the code enforcement officer dated July 31st, 2024 be addressed. And third, that comments in a letter dated August 27th, 2024 from LaBella Associates be addressed. And then there are 7 ongoing conditions. The first, that the site plan comply with Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including Section 4. Second, a cannabis retail dispensary shall not open or conduct any business prior to 9 a.m., nor remain open or conduct any business after 9 p.m. Mondays through Saturdays, and shall not open or conduct any business prior to 12 noon or remain open or conduct business after 6 p.m. on Sundays. Third, no portion of a cannabis retail dispensary on the real property, para lot, on which it is sited shall be located closer than 1,500 feet from any other cannabis retail dispensary, such distance measured in a straight line from the nearest property line on the lot on which any other existing cannabis retail dispensary to the nearest property line of the lot to be occupied by the proposed cannabis retail dispensary. 4, subject to applicable law, cannabis retail dispensary shall provide to the town copies of all information and documentation submitted to the state of New York in application for a license to operate under the cannabis law. 5th, the cannabis retail dispensary shall not operate until the dispensary has obtained all licenses and permits required for it to conduct any business issued by the state of New York and any of its agencies for cannabis retail dispensary operations. Sixth, that a move-in permit be obtained from the Planning and Building Department. And seventh, that a sign permit be obtained from the Planning and Building Department. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the Planning Board's approval letter. Entertain a motion. And second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No. Okay, 3-1.
Thank you all
Set?
very much. Thank
So,
you.
just
very much.
one quick question, what to expect from here on? Like, I know that there's conditions, but with regards to the COO, what can I
So
expect?
what I can do is reach out to you tomorrow, and then I can let you know where to go. We need to wrap up this
Okay,
part, and then I will let Frank, who you've been working with in the code department.
okay.
So I can touch base with you tomorrow on how to
Okay.
wrap it up.
Thank you
Okay,
so
perfect.
much.
No
Thank
problem.
you all for your time. Oh, yes.
What was just read, the resolution? You'll be getting one in the mail, but I'm not sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And then the final item on our agenda is Mr. Hardy. We have a public hearing regarding the preliminary/final application for the Hardy subdivision, property located at 7590 North Road, application 04PS-2024. The owner is Mr. Marshall Hardy, tax map 39.00-1-46.110. Applicant is requesting approval for a subdivision of the 36.3 acre parcel into two lots with the existing home located on Lot R1 and 9.585 acres. And Lot R1A consists of the remaining 26.719 acres and a proposed residential home. This is the second step of a major subdivision, and it should be noted to the board that the town board approved a swap of the conservation easements at their meeting last night.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hardy.
You're stealing all my thunder.
Oh, sorry, sir.
This is my fourth subdivision. I purchased this land back in the 1990s. 46 acres, sold off two 5-acre parcels, one in 2002, one 2004. I currently live on the remaining 36 acres. I'm looking to subdivide that and sell the family home off with about 9.5 acres, as you stated, and build a barn dominium on the remaining portion. You mentioned the fact that we've got a swap with the conservation easements. I did receive a variance from the zoning board. The existing parcel has 59.79 feet of frontage, and that is being broken up into 20.73 feet for Lot R1, which will be the parcel I'm going to be on. I'm sorry, 39.6 for Lot R1, which is the existing parcel, and 20.73 for Lot R1A. I received fire marshal comments. I have talked with the fire marshal. We've discussed the fact that I will need to have two pull-offs spaced approximately 500 feet apart that will allow for fire trucks to pass. And we talked about the fact that I need to put some stone down on one portion of the driveway. It's the only piece of driveway that's never had any work done to it since I've been there, and it is a little bit rough, so I have no problem with those comments. The existing drive is currently an asphalt milling from North Road to the first home of about 12 to 14 feet in width. It then is a gravel drive, 10 to 12 feet in width, down to the second home. And then it goes a minimum of 10 foot of gravel all the way up to the back. I'm currently responsible for the general driveway upkeep. We do not have an agreement. The way we do this is, thus far, it's been prorated based on use. So the first section, all three homes participate in that. Second section, 2 homes, and the last section, 1. I do have a copy of a driveway easement that's been given to me. I am the owner of one of the 5-acre lots is an 83-year-old gentleman who's handicapped and isn't eager to get involved with attorneys and easements and everything else. Thus far, I've done all the work. It's done the way I like it. I did receive planning board comments. I understand that the driveway needs to be updated to town dedicated road and street requirements. I'm going to ask for a waiver on that. It's a half a mile long driveway, and I'll make the fire marshal upgrades, and hopefully that will be sufficient. Excuse me. I did receive Labella's comments this afternoon. They talked about the fact that I will need an environmental assessment. I've given the town both a short and long form. I believe the short form is appropriate. I agree with the fact that while the plans say it's in an R1 district, it clearly is R2. I understand that I need to show, excuse me, the access into Lot 1A in the proposed building. I need to show a driveway for that. That's understandable. I also need to define with the barn dominium how much of that is going to be home and how much of that is going to be barn. The home will be at one end 20 feet wide, 44 feet deep, so it'll be 880 square feet. The rest is all barn. Shared access, I discussed. I recognize the fact that I need to have a well put in, septic system designed, markers, and there's something wrong with the sheet number. But other than that, I concur with everything that Labella has in their letter,
Very good.
and I hope I never have to do this again.
Would you like to start off, Wes?
Yeah, I guess I had a hard time when I initially looked at this subdivision plan, just because I was trying to figure out which frontage went with which lot, right?
That's
there's
because
some-
we didn't show it.
So I'm looking at the subdivision plat, and I seem to, I'm reading, maybe there's a frontage here for lot 3 of 57.87 feet. Is that correct?
Just a second here. Lot 3, yes, 5737, that is correct.
And then there's a very narrow 10.69 feet,
Correct.
and that's the frontage for your new lot R1A, I believe.
That is a portion of it, yes.
Oh,
And then there's an angle point in there
yep,
where there's another
5 feet?
5.02 feet. So the 16 and the 5 are what give you the total width of 20.73. You don't see it on the drawing because it was overlooked by the engineer.
Okay.
They've already modified the drawing to show
Okay,
it.
so I might not have the most up-to-date, is that what you're saying?
Well, he just changed the day when I saw.
Okay, all right, got it, all right. All right, that's helpful. I was trying to figure out, I looked at also some documentation from the variance that I think you received from the ZBA earlier this year, and I was trying to make sure that the variance they issued, or this configuration is reflective of that variance.
Correct, that's the intent.
Okay. Yeah, so we did have some comments here, just cleaning up some of the site data information on the plan sheet, and seeing we'd like to see maybe the grading for the drive that would, I presume it would be relatively a small or short driveway.
It's going to be less than 50 feet.
Yeah.
It's going to service a 4-bay area into the barn, and that area is essentially level.
And you do have a little bit of site grading, it looks like, on this inset for the barn dominium.
There will need to be some site grading, particularly at the south end of it,
Yeah. Okay,
but it's a foot and a half.
okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You captured the other comments that we had, so, yeah, I just think, you know, an updated plan sheet would be helpful for the preliminary. Are we doing preliminary and final together? Because I think if we are, no, we're not, okay.
No, he didn't submit final,
All right, very good. All
just
right,
preliminary today.
sounds good.
Very good.
Al?
I just think that for the long-term best interest of the homeowners, formal driveway access easements should be filed and documented. I mean, when these properties turn over, that could become problematic, so that would be my only add to the conversation at this point.
Now, I understand that comment, but what if one of the owners likes life the way it is and really doesn't want to sign an access agreement?
And I guess we have a problem, which is what we're trying to avoid down the road, right? I mean, I just don't know how we can approve a site plan that doesn't have long-term accessibility.
I think it's actually required, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think legally it is required.
I think so.
But perhaps to the application of that, perhaps there's a, you know, a parallel area that you could reserve for that purpose. If necessary, you could maybe, I mean, I'm looking at the drawing, it's a large site and it's 11 by 17, and I'm stretching the ability of my eyeballs to see some things here, but it looks to me like your lot, which is lot R1, right?
I beg your pardon?
The property on which you live is
Currently,
called lot R1, is that correct?
Where I live now, yes.
Yes. And then you're splitting off lot R1A, and that's where you want to put your
The barn
barn.
dominium, yes.
But it looks like, you're, basically on a big flag lot, and you own a good chunk of property that's outside of the bounds of the existing driveway, so you could potentially put an easement, if you have someone who's not cooperative, you could put it in some way, shape, or form so that the legal connection is made, but perhaps the physical road isn't quite there at this point in time. I'm not quite sure. I'm just brainstorming here, but I think there's a way to overcome that. And I think there is a legal requirement that you have to have that. And my question to you is, in conversations with the fire marshal, how do they fight a fire at this site? Do they have a plan as to how to do that relative to, you don't have public water,
Don't have public water.
and you've got a pretty, you've got a long drive and two pullover areas, right?
I will be constructing 2 pullovers.
Right.
Right now, there's a half a dozen pullovers, but they're not gravelled in.
I see.
And having been a Fisher's firefighter, they have mutual aid with Ionia and Mendon for tankers.
And
And
they'd have to fight it with a tanker, so they'd have to essentially build a swimming pool right near the house and pump out of it, right?
no, they bring it in on the tankers. The tankers carry 1,000 gallons or so,
Okay.
so.
That's how they'd have to do it.
and didn't somewhere out there off of, I say Boughton Hill Road a few years ago, a house burned down because they basically didn't have access to water?
It's problematic, yeah.
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 Good?
Well, I mean, just consider a pond, retention ponds or something that
Yeah.
could be a permanent source of water in these backlots.
If the fire marshal or the fire department recommends it, I'm sure, but otherwise, I think it's not uncommon at all in that neck of the woods.
No, I've seen them in Mendon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, long driveways, it's just not
Yeah,
always
so I'll
wise.
certainly defer to the fire department's comments on
Yeah.
that. If they're comfortable, then.
Yep. Ernie,
Yeah,
any comments, questions?
well, we had a lot of questions last time he was here. I don't know that I have any new ones.
Okay. Very good. This is a public hearing. Do we have any? We're good there? And without further ado, like a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Yeah.
Second.
Scott, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any other discussion or comments from the board? I've got a resolution here then for the Hardy subdivision dated 8/27/2024 for property located at 7590 North Road, application number 04-PS 2024. There are 10 findings of fact. Resolved that the project, Hardy subdivision, will not have a significant impact on the environment and hereby issues a negative declaration. And be it further resolved that the planning board hereby issues a waiver to section 2.9.1.5 of the town's design and construction standards to allow a total of 4 lots to be served by a common driveway, where the standards would otherwise require no more than 3 lots to be served by a common driveway. And therefore it be resolved that the preliminary subdivision application of Marshall Hardy, major subdivision entitled Hardy subdivision, drawn by McMahon LaRue Associates, dated July 2024, received by the Planning Board July 23rd, 2024, Planning Board application number 04 PS 2024, be approved with the following conditions. First, that no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25th, 1996. Second, that Section 4 of standard approved conditions for all subdivisions, major and minor, of design and construction standards be met. 3, that comments in a letter dated August 15th, 2024 from Fire Marshal be addressed. 4, that comments in a letter dated August 2024 from the Code Enforcement Officer be addressed. 5th, that comments in a letter dated August 27, 2024 from LaBelle Associates be addressed. Ongoing conditions: first, that the major subdivision comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standard land development, including Section 4. Second, that all conservation easement markers be shown on the final subdivision plans. And third, that a building permit be obtained from the Planning and Building Department prior to construction. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the Planning Board's approval letter.
Do we have the access easement issue covered, and you just said?
If it's required by code, it would have to be compliant with, or would it?
Yeah, we do have a shared access comment in here. Ensure that reciprocal easements and maintenance agreements be included with the proposed
Question,
project.
though, that is covered in condition number 5.
Okay.
Very good. So then,
I just think that's a very important one.
a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Al?
Second.
Second, Ernie, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I apologize if I disrupted you, but John Hotto used to work for me 25 years ago, and this is the first time I've seen him in forever.
Quite all right. It's quite all right.
Where did you used to work?
It's Sir Brown.
Yeah.
I was with Sir Brown for 36 years.
I know a lot of guys there. Mike Triasi,
Yep.
Doug McCord. A lot of BME guys came from there.
Oh, almost all of them. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You haven't found a pair of sun eyeglasses? I've lost my good glasses somewhere. I'll find them.
Very good.
Don't get old.
Oh, I'm on my way.
Thank you.
Better than the alternative.
Thank you. Unless we have any further business, a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
So no more Kate?
Hey, if you like her, I'll send her once in a while. What's that?
Oh, I think there's some. Oh, one of them.